Assalamu alaikum, adab, good morning, sat sri akal, namaskar. My name is Sayyid Kaswar Abbas. Today, I'm going to talk about United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 2. It's about ending hunger, achieving food security, and improved nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. So, at the onset, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to inform you that food insecurity was already on the rise even before COVID 19. So, one report says that in 2014, 23.2% of the global population was impacted from food insecurity, and it increased later on to 26.4% in 2018. So now everyone around the globe is impacted from food because everybody needs food. That food insecurity, mainly the major impact comes upon less age children, younger girls, and expectant mothers. So one report, it says that 144 million children under the age of 5 were impacted with stunted growth, and 47 million children under the age of 5 were impacted with wasted growth. So this report was for the year 2019. So stunted and wasted growth means that the children, they have to grow at their height, and their weight should grow as per their age. So if children has less height in comparison to their increasing age, so that will be called as stunted growth. And if they have low weight as wanted by their certain height, so that will be called as wasted growth. So these kind of malnutritions, they increase child mortality, and they get them more vulnerable towards infections, and so their life may be under threat. So pandemic had even increased the locust attacks and climate impacts and storms and everything. So these kind of pandemic effects has even worsened the food insecurity, because this has impacted the low land ownership farmers around the world. So as one report says, that 40 to 85% of all the farmers produce, which are low holding farmers, has been impacted. So World Health Organization and different other offices of United Nations, they have fixed some targets and some indicators that they want these children and expectant mothers and younger girls to have better nutrition food, and they want the low holding farmers that their produce should be increased as fast as possible. And all the mechanisms locally at the government level and regional and international level, that mechanisms and systems and processes should be in place, that low holding farmers should be supported. And even the fisheries side, because a lot of food it comes from the fisheries side, so the fishermen should also be supported, that the produce is first of all doubled, and then it is not wasted. The produce is generated from sustainable way, and then in a resilient way. Sustainable way means that the land's quality and soil quality are maintained and improved. And the resilient way means that if different kind of storms and droughts come and locust comes, so the produce by the farmers and by the fishermen, it is saved. So these kind of two basic challenges, it must be done in a sustainable way, it must be produced in a sustainable way, and then it should be the whatever process is followed, that should be resilient enough that no calamity should be able to destroy that. So the complete support to the farmers and fishermen, that the ecosystems are maintained in their support, and then the seeds quality, the seeds diversity, their water resources, their power resources, their education, their machinery. It should be provided to them in a way that their income increases. So now to increase their income, it has to be made sure that latest research mechanism is done. So governments locally and internationally need to put a system in place where latest techniques research is done, and farmers are then educated and they are given financial resources that they should be able to cultivate their crops, they should be able to harvest that, and then they should be able to transport them properly to the markets. And then at the national level, the food commodity markets, they must be able to fairly deal the food commodity prices, and the less volatility should be there. So fair pricing should be given to the farmers at all level, and even the intermediaries, that farmers, when they bring their crop to the market, so the intermediaries should not be able to do the kind of activities where they extract more money, or bigger companies, they extract more money, and the farmers, which are already poor, they are hunger stricken, they are poverty stricken, they should not be kind of manipulated from their hard earned crops. Now, the next thing, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to discuss is the population balance between rural and urban areas. Now, one report in 2015, it says that 2.8 billion population globally lack access to modern energy services. So that could be in urban areas or in rural areas. But we need to keep in mind that the food security comes from rural areas. So if people will migrate because of any reason, because they do not have sufficient income, they do not have security, they do not have sufficient help, education, they do not have health and education services. So whatever public services, whatever connectivity and mobility services farmers and the rural areas population needs, it must be provided to them. If it is not provided, then they will move from rural areas to the urban areas, and then in urban areas another kind of issues, administrative issues, law and order issues, and even public services shortage issues. So then beggary and everything, because the people from rural areas, they would come to the urban areas and they would start getting into that kind of a beggary and homelessness kind of issues. So a balance between rural and urban areas populations need to maintain. So food security originates from urban areas. So governments have to make sure that rural areas must be facilitated in a way that population feels satisfied and happy there. So one report says that 1 billion people have no access to electricity. The burden falls upon them, because in rural areas, if they do not have electricity, if they do not have educational facilities, if they do not have health facilities, so they would like to move to the urban areas. So one report says that in rural areas, 56% of the births are attained by skilled health professionals versus 87% in urban areas. I am personally witness to this fact, that when I was in Pakistan, I saw that particularly expectant mothers at the time of the delivery, they had to be in emergency moved to hours of distance far away to the big cities just to get the hospital support. and in any other emergencies, if there's any medical issue, there is no doctor nearby. So maybe it is at the distance of half an hour drive or 20 minutes drive, which is not right. So generally, as I've seen in North America, with the our 911, our medical facilities, they are supposed to arrive within 6 minutes, even if they are the rural areas. So that kind of a standard need to be maintained in the rural areas, where medical support, qualified medical support, is provided in the rural areas. And yes, on one side, safe drinking water, rural areas are good. About 16% of rural population around the world have safe drinking water available, while 4% in the urban cases, which is very less. So this is now a problem if there is a huge population in the urban areas. So safe drinking water and clean drinking water will not be available to them. And then the lack of sanitation facilities. 50% in the rural areas, they lack sanitation facilities, versus 18% in the urban areas. Well, these may be developed countries, even 50%. I do not agree. In the South Asian region, or in South in African region, 50%. No, I would say that close to 100% population in the rural areas, at least I've seen in Pakistan, they do not have access to safe and good sanitation facilities. United Nations is again working. There is an organization, Sustainable Agriculture and Rural Development. So they are working on the rural development issues, and they want to have sustainable agriculture and resilient agriculture methodologies worked out and provided to the farmers in the villages, so that they can produce their crop and they can have sufficient price available to them. Now, in the sustainable way, this will evolve education and utilization of the economic incentives and development of new technologies. And they should have sufficient water available. How the water is channelized and how the water is stored, that should be a sustainable way, because the water facilities available to the farmer, because they're critical to their cultivation. So water should be saved, and then water should be communicated in the channels in a way that it should not be wasted. Similarly, when they have the crops, so their seeds should be resilient kind of seeds. Their variety should be like that, that it should not be easily spoiled by the drought or by storms. And if there is any kind of locust, so the seed variety should be that kind of a resilient, so it should not be easily able to get spoiled. So that kind of research need to go on in the countries, and farmers with especially with low holding of the lands, they should be supported with sufficient research, with sufficient technology, seeds and plants and water and soil quality. Their soil quality and land quality should be maintained in a way that their crops are giving them better produce, and they're resilient enough. And now to maintain their soil quality, the organic kind of fertilizers are available to them, so that their lands are the land quality and soil quality is maintained. And going further on, ladies and gentlemen, forestation is something which is a lifeline for the people and planet. So the forests, they actually are providing us the health. They emit oxygen for all of us, and they absorb carbon dioxide. In this way, one report says that it not only gives out the oxygen and absorbs carbon dioxide, it's a source of power also. It's a source of livelihood. It's a source of income for many people. So 1.6 billion people lives depends on forests. So it's a huge number of people around the world that their livelihood, their protection, their safety, their incomes, it depends upon the forests. So one report says that the economic value of the forest ecosystem around the world is around $16.2 trillion annually. So that's huge. So we have to really make sure that we plant more trees, we plant more forests, and we do not cut the trees. So that's the kind of education which need to go on, that forests are kind of lifeline for us. We need to understand that, and they are lifeline for the planet as well. So when you see the United Nations, they have even targets and indicators for the forests. They say that 7 million hectares of the forests are still lost, mostly through conversion to other land uses. Now, this is a big issue, that because there is a food insecurity, so people, they cut down the trees and forests and they want to cultivate the crops there. So that's a problem. It's a challenge. So what we have to do, that we need to make sure that forests are also grown, they're not cut off, and the deforestation does not take place, while we have resilient and sustainable produce from the lands as well. So UN has planned a lot of strategies until 2030. They want to make sure that the forests, they grow. So they have 6 global forest goals and 26 associated targets. So countries, the signatory countries, they have been requested to work on growing more forests and protecting them, and while do not spoil the lands as well. So the forests are most cost effective way to fight climate change. So one report says that 2 billion tons of CO2 each year is consumed by the forest. So sustainable forest management can build resilient and help mitigate and adopt climate change. So that's a big advantage, ladies and gentlemen, that if we are able to plant more trees, we are able to plant more forests, so carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas emissions, they will be absorbed by the forests. So one report says in that United Nations Forum of Forest noted that forest-based climate change actions, if fully implemented, uh, could reduce greenhouse gas emissions by around 15 gigatons of CO2 by the year 2050. So 15 gigatons CO2 emissions can be absorbed by the forest till 2050. That's a huge number. While today the fossil fuel emissions are 36 gigatons. So it could potentially be enough. They say that if the forest globally can consume 15 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions, so it could be enough to maintain the target of global warming limit to less than 2 degrees centigrade. So that was actually a commitment done in 2015, that the forest level that will be increased to the level that we should be able to, by 2050 we should be able to contain the global warming limit to 2 degrees centigrade, less than 2 degrees centigrade. So in that way, in addition, forests are a source of energy, replacing the fossil fuel. So there is another report. It says, ladies and gentlemen, that forests are already supplying 40% of renewable energy in the form of wood fuel. So that's a very important area. So 40% of the wood fuel forest supply, as much as solar, hydroelectric, and wind power combined. So renewable energy sources, we have three renewable energy sources, which is solar, hydroelectric, and wind power. They combined have 40% of renewable energy source, and only forest they provide equivalent to that. So this can give us the indication that how important the forests are. So in that way, we have to make sure that we keep growing the forests, and we make sure that the forest ecosystem is maintained in a way that we do not waste our lands as well, and we improve the forest. So that is excellent for livelihood, that's excellent for the protection of the lands, excellent for the species, because there are 80% of terrestrial species are housed in the forest. So we do not want the birds and flora and fauna species to get extinct. So the forest, they basically preserve the bird species, they preserve the animal species, they preserve the flora and fauna species. So there's a huge benefit of the forest. So we need to make sure that we keep growing the forest, and we do not let the number of trees go down. So in that way, we are going to maintain our livelihood of the poor people, especially those living in the forest and savanna areas. And then we are going to benefit the environmental protection system, and obviously the poverty level, because these people who live close to forest and savanna areas, they are most poor and vulnerable. So we do not want the vulnerable people to go into further poverty lines. So because COVID is already pushing the poverty line down. As one report says, that 34.3 million people are getting into below the poverty line because of the COVID. So forestry improvement and forestry development is extremely important. So international efforts and regional and national efforts in respective countries need to go on. I'm really happy to see, I have seen development going on in the forest in Pakistan. Pakistani government is doing a good job on that. Please keep doing that. And then going on further to how to how to eliminate hunger, in the country of Niger, they started following a strategy in 1983 that's called farmer managed natural regeneration. So this is called FMNR. Niger started it, and now this strategy is being implemented in at least 24 countries around the world, in which India, Myanmar, Indonesia, and many other countries, they are involved into that. So this is low cost land restoration technique. Now, the land restoration means that it is that kind of a land which has somehow been degraded. It's maybe it is eroded by the rivers, or it has been kind of deserts have been created, or anyway because of any reason that land has degenerated, it has gone infertile. So in that kind of a land, it has been given to the poor people, poor families, poor women, and they have been given knowledge and financing, and facilities, other facilities, seeds and etc., water facilities. So those owners, they are generally women. They have cultivated these lands, and they have put those kind of trees over there, that those trees are not cut down. they're chopped off from above the root, and they're sold for the wood or for produce or anything, and the roots remain there. So trees are not taken out, uprooted completely, but only chopped off from close to the root. So in that way, that land, its land quality gets better, its soil quality gets better, and it needs less water, in so that kind of a thing, it's very profit oriented. The organizations, actually there have been some organizations, there's a bond challenge. So organizations are, this bond challenge is supporting to restore 350 million hectares, it is hectare, 350 million hectares of degraded land globally by 2030. So hectare is, 1 hectare is almost equal to 2.5 acres. So because in, I think in Pakistan, in India, the acres are is the measure of the land. So by 2030, the bond challenge is a global effort. They're trying to convert 350 million hectares of land to cultivable land. So that's kind of degraded, but their target is to bring it to use through farmer managed natural regeneration process. And there's another organization which is AFR100. This is in Africa, and they aim to restore 100 million of degraded land around Africa. So it could be deserts, it could be in the mountain areas, it could be in the jungles. So wherever there is a degenerated land, so these organizations are working to bring this land into use. Now, what the experience has, that the World Vision Ghana, this is an organization, and they issued a investment report that the rate of return of this FMNR strategy has been great. The 3 years were the term of initial project, and they said that the rate of return for at the end of first 3 years was 6 into 1. So 6 times of the investment. While the investment was not very big, it was only 40 to 50 dollars per hectare. And then this World Vision report, they said that after 4 years of the end of the project, the rate of return was 17 into 1. So that's incredible. And after 10 years, they found out that 43 times of the initial investment, this was the rate of return. So 43 times more. So this is a huge kind of an opportunity. Farmer managed natural regeneration strategy. The other countries, if it has not been looked into, I'm not sure if Pakistan is looking into it. I've not seen the name of country Pakistan into this report. So maybe if Pakistani government happen to listen to this message, they should be able to take guidance from United Nations good practices for elimination of hunger, and search for FMNR. And now going further, ladies and gentlemen, the world leaders in 2012, they had a conference on sustainable development to zero hunger, and they agreed to certain targets. Number one, they said that for children under the age of 2, there will be zero stunted growth. So they are going to make sure that malnutrition for children under the age of 2, it should be finished in some period of time. In 2012, they fixed this target for them, but I couldn't find what is the end date. And then number 2, they said 100% access to adequate food all around the year. Number 3, all food systems are sustainable. Number 4, 100% increase in smallholder farmer productivity and income. So in that way, we can take guidance from FMNR strategy started by nature. Number five, zero loss or wastage of food. So that these five targets, they were kind of decided and agreed in 2012, but I'm sure that these targets are now mixed up and embedded into the sustainable development goal number two. So in the sustainable agriculture, I want to touch upon certain things that just want to tell that how should sustainable agriculture come in. The extreme poverty and hunger are predominantly rural, because the rural areas, they have been left behind in all over around the countries, and they have almost no facilities, no mobility, no connectivity, health, education, in everywhere they have been left behind. So that is why the population in the rural areas, they are unable to make their ends meet. So we need to look after them, and we governments need to make sure that they're able to provide necessary agriculture infrastructure and necessary agriculture ecosystem, that the poor and hungry around the rural areas, they're able to sustain themselves, and the poverty and hunger is eradicated. The agriculture systems must be more productive and less wasteful. So that kind of a strategy and ecosystem, agriculture ecosystem, need to work, that the resilient and sustainable agriculture produce is provided, is able to should be able to done. So sustainable agriculture practices and food system, including production and consumption, must be pursued from holistic and integrated perspective. So land and healthy soils, water and planet, genetic resources are key input into food production. Thus, growing scarcity in many parts of the world make it imperative to use and manage sustainably. Boosting yields on existing agriculture lands, in the including restoration of the degrading land through sustainable agriculture practices, would be would reduce the pressure to clear forest from agriculture production. So if we are able to work on the restoration of the degraded land, then the pressure on the deforestation will be reduced. So this is the basically we have to strike a balance. If we want to make sure that our forests are secure, we have to make use of the degraded lands. I know from the area that I come from, South Punjab in Pakistan, there is a lot of land which is degraded. There desertification have taken place in the in the Thal area, then in the river beds of River Ravi and Chenab, river bank erosions have taken place, and huge lands, they have been left uncultivable and degraded. So over there, government can support. First of all, the Punjab government in Pakistan should make sure that river banks on the rivers, like in my lands, they have been affected. It's in Tehsil Kabirwala, Moza Haveli Mubarak Shah of South Punjab. So the miles of the lands have been eroded from River Ravi. So whenever water comes in, flooding comes in, and those lands have been left degraded, and they're not usable. So it's the responsibility of the provincial governments to make sure that river banks are strengthened and fortified in a way that they do not erode the important cultivable lands. Those lands are very powerful soils and very powerful. There are mango orchard in those areas. In Multan, around Multan areas, and Khanewal areas, these lands around River Ravi and Chenab, they are very powerful and good quality lands. They have been destroyed for last 20, 30, 40 years. I have seen that miles of the areas, they have been degraded by the River Ravi. So it's the government responsibility, and people have been ruined in those areas. So please have a look. And in the other areas, if you go into Jung, Bakhar, these are all deserts. Those lands can be put to use properly, and they could be put to use through proper irrigation methods and to proper education of those people, so that the produce is improved, and poverty and hunger is reduced. So that way you can boost the yield, and your lands can also become cultivable. So that's how we need to halt, and we need to recover. First of all, we need to halt the degradation of the land, and then we need to put the already degraded lands into use. This is a huge problem in Pakistan, in Punjab, in Balochistan, and in Sindh. Balochistan is a huge province. You need to put those lands into use, to provide water resources to them. Water catchments and water storage and water channels, they should be provided in a way, and then those people who do not own the lands over there, they should be given small patches of the lands on the ownership basis, and then they should be facilitated with financing and with knowledge and with machinery and technologies, that they should be able to put their own people who are not employed already. So give them the lands, and they give them the facilities, power, water, technology, and all the machinery they want, and financing, so that they're able to make those lands cultivable. So in that way, you can have a sustainable agriculture. You can put the already degraded land into use, and you can cultivate those lands with the trees as well. So now the research need to be going on. In fact, the governments need to finance the research and see that what kind of seeds should be used there, which need less water and which should be resilient enough to give the crops with safety, and they should not be able to destroy with climate shocks or any locust or any storms. So by that way, ladies and gentlemen, our governments nationally and internationally should work on the research and development of farming and forestation, so that the the produce of the farmers is increased, and poverty and hunger is reduced. So, and that need to be resilient as well. And so then we have to see that how the small farmers should be developed in knowledge in the modern farming, as financing in the and with the latest machinery. The governments, they give them the subsidies. So instead of the subsidies, you should be able to give them financing and machinery. So by that way, you will build their capacity. You need to build their capacity actually. Fine, they will have money, that is good for them. But if you give them subsidy, they'll have better money, fine. But are they utilizing that money to improve their produce? So you should be mainly addressing their capabilities to get more produce from the lands and bring the degraded lands into use. So, and the right of ownerships of the lands in these village areas and even in city areas, those people, even families, they kind of manipulate and defraud their own relatives and their own women, and they do not give them the lands. So that's where the government intervention come in, that whenever the inheritance issue comes, so government, the revenue departments, it should be responsibility of the local revenue department that they should get the death certificate whenever somebody dies. So whatever the property on his or her name, it should be given, the due share should be put to the name of the next generation, and they should make sure that the possession has gone to the next generation. So this does not happen, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen it personally, especially in Pakistan. I don't know about India or other countries. I'm sure these are similar cultures, so it must be happening there as well. So revenue departments, they are too much sluggish and too much incompetent and corrupt. They do not do proper work and do not make sure that land inheritance and land ownership records are properly maintained. I don't know, I have heard that some improvements are going on and the digitization of the land records is being done, but so many civil suits cases, millions of civil cases are in progress in the courts, and they are just kind of going through rigmarole and no outcomes. So it has the land records have created huge problems in the developing world. So inheritance is one issue that the governments need to work properly, and they need to make sure that ownerships of the lands are given to the right people in inheritance, and also those lands which belongs to the government, and especially if they are degraded, they should be put to proper use and they should be given on ownership rights to the poor people. Like I was saying before in my one of the previous videos, do the census, find out the lowest segment of the society, which are homeless, which are beggars, which are living under common tents and slums. So give them the ownership rights and facilitate them, educate them, finance them little bit, so that they should be able to earn their living and put the degenerated and degraded land into proper use. And then the land consolidations. I've seen that one person, he has small pieces of lands in different areas, and if one person, for example, if I have the small pieces of land at 5 different places, why you do not consolidate it into one place? So revenue departments need to work, and they should consolidate those land, and one person should have a piece of land at one place. So that's a kind of a work that need to be done. So it used to be called as ishtimal, and I'm sure that people in the revenue department, they know it. So please do that, so that will facilitate that person or that family to control and put that land to proper use. And so in that way they will be able to get the more produce. And so there are so many other things which could be done. Like I've already said, the deserts and the riverbeds could be put to use. And then these far-flung lands which are degraded in the riverbeds and in the deserts, they should be connected with the roads and with the machinery and with connectivity. Some connectivity is there, some mobility is already there, but at many places it's not there. So those areas should be connected with the markets. And in market, the middlemen, they have been seen manipulating the poor farmers. So the systems at municipal level should be in place, that middle people, either they should be removed altogether, or there should be some kind of a regulation to put them to check. And so next thing which I would like to talk about is the land reforms. If in these developed countries, some people, they huge large lands, they in the rural areas particularly, you will thousands of hectares of land, thousands of acres of land. So they actually become so powerful that they manipulate the poor. They become kind of electables, they become kind of indispensable in the power sector. And they have been holding the developing countries and emerging countries hostage. So it is the responsibility of the governments to make sure that some land reforms are done. I know that historically some efforts were done before, but these people have taken a shape of the mafia, and they do not let it go like this. So there has to be some kind of a strategy to do that, and these land reforms should be done. Some maximum limit, One person or one family should not be able to hold some reasonable amount of land, not more than some reasonable amount, because in this way you will improve the self-respect of the poor people. Now give that land on ownership to the other poor people. They should be able to then get the produce out of it, and that way you will improve the self-respect, you will improve the prosperity, you will improve the poverty in those especially poor areas. And now in urbanization in the cities, you find I have seen people, somebody having 20 properties, 30 properties on his name, and then he is kind of making money out of it, or he is renting it out or whatever. So now what the result is, that if some people, they will have this kind of a business of buying the properties, it's a dead investment. It does not give employment to anybody. The wealth should be put to the use in a way that it should be put to the business in a way that it should give employment to the people. There should be a maximum limit in the urban areas on holding the properties and plots and these files being transferred here and there. There should be ban on urbanized properties files, and there should be a maximum limit, whatever, one, two, or three, or depending upon the family. Now what has happened is that those people who really need a house to live, they cannot afford it. And some people, they have made mafia, and they have made kind of systems in a way that they hold large number of properties and plots. That is very unfair to those people who are unable to. So the prices of the properties in urban areas have gone enormously high. So this government responsibility should be that they should put maximum limit, and huge taxation should be put on these kind of properties, that one family should not be able to hold the large number of plots or houses in the urban settings. Yes, if they have money, they should put into business, they should put into some design, manufacturing, some kind of education institution, some kind of health and fitness institutions, any kind of business which gives employment to the people, where the money circulates. So this kind of an investment where people put investments in the plots, that is not right. That money is, the economies would get better only if the money is put to circulation, and it changes hands, it changes lot of hands. So it should be changing, going into large number of hands, not that you buy a plot and within 6 months its price is doubled. That's very unfair. I'm sure the governments in developing countries, and even in developed countries, I have seen it here in Canada as well. But in my neighborhood, I've seen one person holding 22 properties, where the people who actually needs the home to live, they cannot buy it. So that's very unfair. It's a problem everywhere. It's not only developing countries, it's a big problem in developed countries as well. So if governments of the developed countries are listening to it, please do something about it. Housing is a crisis, and so put huge taxes, whatever you do, but the housing prices in big cities should be going down, they should be slashed. I wish, I'm reading it somewhere, I wish that COVID must be a blessing in disguise, and it should push the property prices down, urban properties particularly. So then town planning. The town planning in urban settings should be done in a way that people are easily trackable, people are easily contactable, especially in the countries like the developing countries. The town planning is very poor, and that creates huge problems. So the town planning should be always done in a way that you keep future in mind. So the future trends, power, communication, water, sanitation, mobility, and whatever other needs are, they should be kept in mind, and there should be proper town planning done, and proper zoning should be done, that this is the industrial area, this is the living area, this is the health area, this is the educational. So proper zoning arrangements should be done, and in that way we will be able to make sure that urbanization is well planned. You're able to administer it very well, and there will be no environmental issues, no air quality issues. And so that's how futuristically we need to maintain our urbans and rural populations. So now, depending upon, because we do not have to focus on the produce of the agriculture food, but we have to make sure that it is not wasted as well. So implementing food quality is another thing which everywhere it should be looked at. Whether whatever countries they are, it could be emerging countries or developed countries, food wastages take place everywhere. So we need to educate people. We need to educate the industry, food industry, that the wastages are not done. The supply chain is maintained in a way that food, where it is produced, it is properly processed, it's properly packed, and safely it is transported to wherever it has to go. The supply chain issues and protectionism issues and subsidy issues, they should be managed in a way that food items, wherever they have to be transported and communicated, they should be able to reach there in shortest possible time and in the safest possible manner. They should not perish or get spoiled in a way that they get destroyed. We are in already food insecurity, so it is the government's responsibility to make sure that all the required laws and all the required technologies and processes and all the required facilitation is done, that better quality foods are produced with safety and with security, and they should have proper nutrition into it, and they should be communicated to wherever they have to go. They should be transported to where they have to go in a very secure manner. Especially in Pakistan, I've seen there's a huge problem of adulteration and all that. One of the TV person, Sayyid Ikrarul Haq, I have been watching his some of the programs. He has been doing a great job, but mafia has been hitting him. So it's the government responsibility. Pakistani government must make sure that such benevolent people are doing actually a government job. They're facilitating the government departments. So they should be protected. So they should be facilitated and protected. He has been beaten many times, I have seen. So it's the government responsibility that first of all, government departments should be effective. They should make sure that food quality is maintained in a way. There's a proper check and accountability done on all the factories and all the producers and all the supply chain people, that food qualities are maintained, and they are done in a way that wherever it is produced, it is right. When it is transported and reaches to the consumer from all this supply chain, the food quality is maintained properly. And then from food wastages point of view, especially everywhere, I would not say any country or any region, the food wastages are there everywhere. I have seen everywhere. So first of all, this is again an education. This is again a food quality and food accountability and government departments and all the stakeholders involved into it. But one thing I would absolutely advise about the emerging countries. I've seen it in Pakistan because I come from there. There are extravagant ceremonies, wedding ceremonies, condolences, get-togethers when somebody dies, and then wedding parties, huge wedding parties. So these kind of extravagant and lavish get-togethers must be banned. So it's a blessing in disguise that COVID has put a forceful ban onto it. And I wish there must be laws imposed. There is nothing like one dish and all that. These parties must be banned. They waste the food a lot, and then those kind of mobs you invite, they only come uh, to consume your resources, and don't ever imagine that they're your friends. They're not your friends. They would always talk at your back that what kind of rubbish food was this. So better, it's better to save your money and spend it for some good purpose, for your own benefit, for your children benefit, or at least give sadqa and charity to the poor, where some people pray for you. So that kind of a ban should be put on these parties where people are kind of showing off their wealth to other people, and it puts whole of the society under pressure, and it creates kind of a very unhealthy competition, that guy has spent so much on his son's wedding and daughter's wedding, and that guy has given so much of dowry and all that. So that's a very unhealthy kind of an habit, and I would request especially the Pakistani government to put in force severe ban onto this even after COVID. This is completely unhealthy. So, well, I think it has been a long time, quite a big video of 55 minutes. So, thank you very much. I will request all of you to please subscribe to this channel, circulate this video, and just for the message to reach to the people. And uh, Allah Hafiz for now. And there will be a Urdu video on the same topic. I'll be uploading it today. Bye bye. Allah Hafiz.